Vayichan sham Yisrael neged ha'har Kulanu kulanu ke'echad.
So joining us from Atlanta, Georgia, which I understand has just reopened for business.
Not exactly.
Not exactly. Okay, it's Rav Ilan Feldman, who's the Rav of Beth Jacob in Atlanta for 29 years. He succeeded his father, Emmanuel Feldman Shlita, who I read his book, by the way. I thought it was fabulous. And Rav Feldman heads a kehillah that fills a kollel, a day school, mikveh, kashrus organization, girls' high school, boys' yeshiva, certainly all the creds you need to be a machanach. And Rebbetzin, his wife, Rebbetzin Miriam, who's a granddaughter of the great Goyen of Yaakov Yitzchak Ruderman, Rashiv of Ner Yisrael, and she passes on the Messiah she received from them. She's been the first and only principal of the local Beis Yaakov Tmima High School for Girls for 20 years. So here we have a couple. We have a couple that are really outstanding. Mechanechim, have all the credentials. It's an honor to have you. As experts in chinuch, how would you define what is chinuch? There's no word for it in English, so that's how I would start it out.
Well, first of all, we all know the translation of chinuch, which is obviously dedication, and what we're trying to do with chinuch is actually give people at an early age an orientation to the fact that there is a Ribbon Shalom, and that he has a plan for us. And if we can successfully orient people to the fact that there's a Borei Olam, and there is a communication from him to us that's real today, that's chinuch.
So chinuch is centered around youre Shamayim and Emunah.
Yes, definitely.
Okay, and now does chinuch go beyond that, towards life skills, towards midas, towards relationships, etc.?
For sure. Yeah, I would distinguish this from the idea that we want to make sure that people do the right thing. Because sometimes chinuch inadvertently becomes a focus on making sure people know how to do the right thing. And then it becomes about doing, and then it doesn't become about a relationship or a connection to the Creator. It becomes rote, becomes behaviors, and then you measure yourself based on how your behaviors look, etc. So I would distinguish chinuch. It's got to have the major component. It's got to be that there's a relationship that's real.
Okay, so Rebbetzin, what are the attributes of a good mechanech?
I think that a good mechanech is somebody who recognizes that they have a mission from a Kadosh Baruch Hu to build an Adam Shalem in each child, which means that they have to see the entire person. They want to create a person who feels loved and appreciated, because if this child will feel that they matter and they're loved and by HaKadosh Baruch Hu and by others, and that they're worthwhile, they will be able to care about other people and think about other people, including HaKadosh Baruch Hu. When that feeling is there that you're not enough, or you're not loved, or you're not good, you have no space in your head to care about what the Ribbon Shalom wants. It's all about me and how I make myself feel better. So a mechanech must be aware of that. It's not about the actual thing they're learning, which of course is important. Much more important is building this Adam into someone who is Shalem.
And you're defining Shalem as?
That's a good question. I guess I would say an Adam HaShalem is somebody who is able to look at themselves, see the good pieces of themselves, see where they need to improve, not be afraid to see what's wrong and what areas we need to improve. Someone who's willing to take a step at a time, someone who's a makabel, who can listen to mentors and guides, who can think for themselves but also listen to chachamim, and someone who feels good about themselves, good enough to sometimes make mistakes, good enough to take a stand for things that matter.
Okay, so self-aware, you're saying self-aware.
Sure.
And you're saying self-confidence.
Yes.
And taking a stand for that matters is is, I guess, having a strong sense of morality of right and wrong.
I don't like to put it in those terms. I would rather put it in what a Kadosh Baruch Hu says we should do and think and feel, and we follow that. We don't decide what's morality.
Okay,
Only Kadosh Baruch Hu guides us. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. But it seems that speaking out to you is an important part of it. Or this is what I believe. And explain to me, why is that so important? And when I address you, I'm talking to the collective you. I'm just
Right. A lot of times we think we know something, and until we're required to actually articulate it, until we're able to actually articulate it, we find out we don't really know it or understand it. We might start talking about it, and then we realize, I don't really get what I'm saying. Especially now when there are so many values that are anti-Torah, our kids have to be very clear. It's not good and bad. It's how do I think in line with what the Ribono Shel Olam wants of me? The basic thing is that I'm in this world to serve him. Unfortunately, the way the world is raising children now is that we're all here to serve you. Let us know what you need. Let us know what feels good. Let me know how to protect you. A Jew understands from a very young age, I am here to serve Ribono Shel Olam. He loves me, and because he believes in me, he's going to put me in challenging positions so I can grow bigger and bigger. My focus is on doing what he wants me to do. It's a completely different way of looking at life than what's going on in the entire world, including, unfortunately, I think, a part of the frum world too.
okay.
It's not to indict any of the frum world. It's to say that, but not only just to be appropriate, but it's the human condition. It's the human condition to slide into that kind of a am I okay? Am I not okay? Am I good? Am I bad? And in the process, one slides away from the whole picture that my wife was just describing. The Ratzon Hashem, exactly.
So as we look for societal affirmation too much, is that what you're referring to?
Yeah, exactly. And we forget that we're in a relationship, and we forget that we actually are in a relationship with one who loves us and who cares about us and who's invested in us, who created us, who birthed us, who takes care of us, who's a living being, who's our source.
And who holds us accountable.
Yeah, all that, yeah. So
we've spoken about what a machanech, what chinuch is, what's successful chinuch, what are the attributes of a good machanech. Let's talk about the flip side of it, the back edge. What would you say you're a parent, you're a machanech, this is what you should not be doing? What is a don't do? What have you seen in bad machanechim that you cringed and you said, oh my gosh, can't believe they're doing that?
Well, first of all, criticism, shaming, criticism, the idea that you'll never be different. This is what you do, impatience, sarcasm. Those things are destructive. They destroy the children. And judgment. We tend to judge even little children. We judge their behavior and then we put a label on them or we think of them in a certain way. Children, human beings change all the time. And if we could accept the whole picture of who this human being is and see the beauty in them and the godless in them, we don't criticize, we don't judge, we build.
I have a raya from Chazal where it says, Rebbetzin Shalom wanted to create the world b'midas hadin, Rosh ein ha'olam niskayim, shitefi midas harachmim. Din means, what do you go to court for? Judgment. He said, the world will not exist if I create it with judgment. The only way it could exist is with rachamim. And you're saying on a personal level, every relationship has that. If we go into a relationship where there is din, there is no relationship. It's eino miskayim. Right?
No, I don't think
Okay.
I wouldn't agree with that. I think that the greatest love is din. The greatest way that you show love is din. For instance, if you're a good mechanech or a good parent, if you love that child, you will create barriers and standards so that they're safe and structure so that they know what to do. That's what a Kadosh Baruch Hu did for us. I think that Chazal also means that you can't have a world that is only din. You have to have a world that's rachamim and din. There's no such thing as chesed without din. So if you're raising a child and you think you're just going to love them, I've seen parents do this. I don't want to confront her because I just want her to feel loved. And I watch them destroy the child.
But you were against judgment. You said you were against.
Right. That's correct. So here, right. In other words, when you judge a person as if you're God and decide he's good, he's not good, he's going to make it, he's not going to make it, that's judgment. But in terms, when you really love someone, you look for where you can assist, push, direct.
You're saying we need boundaries, but no judgment.
That's correct. Only a Kadosh Baruch Hu judges. And I mean, okay. In my opinion, this is just my opinion.
Okay, so you're saying, and Rav Feldman, what would you say what have you seen from Mechanchim that made you cringe? Parents or Mechanchim?
Comparison. Pointing out to somebody that they should be like somebody or they shouldn't be like somebody. And what that unintentionally does is tell the person that she should measure themselves based on somebody else's behavior. And again, it's no longer an internal dialogue. It's no longer about how I'm doing in relationship with the Kadosh Baruch Hu. It's now a form of keeping up with the, can't use the word Joneses because they're from, but keeping up with the Steins, So, and it doesn't stop. It doesn't stop. If the chinuch starts that way, a person continues to orient himself that way, even as he gets older and even as an adult. He doesn't realize it. His measure of how he's doing, how long his Shemona Esrei is taking, and how long his Shemona Esrei is taking has to do with what minyan he's davening in and how long everybody else is davening. So it becomes a very superficial way, but it's a very powerful controller of human behavior, comparison. That's why we at the root, at the beginning of a person's life, we want to avoid that as much as possible because it becomes the standard by which I know, how do I know if I'm okay? Everybody wants to know if they're okay. How do you know?
Let me share with you, the Kli Yakar says that the first chait after Ma'aseh Bereishis was, he says, Hevel dies. I think it's the Kli Yakar, he says, what Aveira did Hevel do? We know there's a klal in Misa b'lei chet. So he says, the Hevel Hevi Gamhu.
Gamhu.
Beautiful.
He committed suicide on his individuality by being an imitator, and that is a type of a personal death. The first chait is Gamhu.
Powerful. Wow.
Powerful. So we are in unprecedented times where parents and children are alone together, isolated together. If you're younger, I guess you still have kids at home. And many of them, it's very trying, right? But for others are going to look back at this years later, after this is gone, Be'ez Hashem one day, and they're going to say, wow, those were such magical moments. What advice would you give to parents to say, if you do this, you'll end up in the magical moment class, not looking back and saying, oh my God, those were really tough times. What advice would you give to parents listening?
The first thing is that no matter what the situation, we want to be with the children. We want to actually give them a sense that we were there for them and with them. Imcha anochi b'tzara. So whatever goes on, rather than be preoccupied with surviving the situation ourselves and having the children be one of the things we have to survive, including our devotion to their well-being and our devotion to their chinuch, but we have to survive that demand, rather turn this into an opportunity to be with them. They'll remember that the sweetest of times was when their parents were actually with them and loving them and sitting with them.
What would you say, Rebbetzin?
I think that at times like this, people have a lot of anxiety. And as soon as you get into anxiety, you have a desire to control. So we have to be aware that our priorities are our relationships now. Not the mess in the house, not the children on the online learning, not anything. The only priority now is the relationship between the parents and the relationship with the children. Of course, you want to create a structure in the house because that helps everybody. But if things go wrong and the kids don't listen or your husband doesn't do what you want him to do, the most important thing is to just understand this is a hard time for everyone. Here are my priorities. To keep my priorities in front of my eyes all the time. To give love, to be respectful. To give love, to model, to be respectful. Nothing else matters now. There's nothing else that matters now. This is the Nisayan. We can't control, we don't know, but these children were given to us and we have to model acceptance, love, serenity, not anxiety, which we may be feeling.
So, Rebbetzin, you're saying that this is a time where being a perfectionist is absolutely off the table.
Off the table.
Yeah.
But that's the whole point of this virus. It's telling us that we can't manage anything without a Kodesh Baruch Hu. When I want to be a perfectionist, I think I'm God. I forget I'm here to serve, and it doesn't matter if things go my way. Yes, off the table.
And I would put to you that even though you're stressing it now, but I would say it's a theme that in Yiddishkeit, the Gemara says, Arba mesu b'itay shel nachash. 4 died without ever sinning. And they were relatively obscure figures. Binyamin, Amram, Ishai, one of David's children, I forget his name. None of them have their pictures hanging in a sukkah. And the question would be, if these were the perfect people, those should be hanging in our sukkah. And I put to you that the Gemara says that Yosef was perfect. He didn't sin with Eshes Peitifera, whereas Yehuda seems with Tamar, right? But Yehuda becomes Melech. Rebbeinu Shalom does not want Malachim.
Right.
He does not. He has enough angels in heaven.
Right.
He wants like the Anshe Kodesh. He wants humans who are holy. He's not interested in perfect people. And you're saying that now's the time to stress that more than ever.
What you want to stress is victories over self. That's what you can teach the children right now. I just controlled myself. I really wanted to do such and such, and I didn't. I got impatient, and I controlled myself, and I stayed so calm. To focus on the struggle, the tiny little victories throughout the day. Then the children feel, I'm a powerful person who can control myself. Okay. Imagine showing that during this period of time.
Now let me throw a hardball over the place, right? There's, Americans, we could use our vernacular. Now let's go to teenagers. And this is what I heard from a few teenagers who I spoke to. They said, the death in the Orthodox community in Brooklyn is 20x over the rest of the country, 2,000%. Because they're not listening and they're making levias and chasanis and minyanim. And the New York Times ran an article yesterday, and the comments were, they were donating plasma, so the comments, stop killing us and making up for it by donating plasma. How do we explain to teenagers what seems to be such by elements in our society, behavior that is the opposite of Kiddush Hashem? How would we explain that to teenagers who ask the question?
First of all, how would you explain it to ourselves? Right? That's not just a problem with teenagers. They say out loud what we're afraid to say out loud because we've already learned to be socially appropriate. So if we have an answer for ourselves, we can talk to our teenagers. If we don't have an answer for ourselves, we better hope they're talking to somebody else. And we have to struggle with this. And so first of all, it's very important, and teenagers don't like this thing, but life is not black and white. Nobody is all good and all bad. Nobody is all right or all wrong. and nobody is all clear and without doubt. The point is that there are many things to take into account over here in the Frum community that are so unique to the Frum community that make us so much more vulnerable to the virus. And that is a shevach. It's an absolute wonderful characteristic of the Frum community. And if we're not able to look at the whole picture, we're never going to be able to assess things properly. The whole picture is that I have a chaver who says that like shuls, we talk about social distancing. Shuls are social closening places. They're designed to bring people together, not only in achdus before Kadosh Baruch Hu, but with each other. Everybody has their minyan, and everybody has their person that they have to shake their hand to, and the gabbai who's hugging them, or the rav that they want to shmooze with, or the chaver or the chavrusa that they learn with before or after. Everybody's connected, mamish physically, to others. And then chasanas. I mean, sometimes people complain about the fact that they have so many weddings to go to. Unbelievable, Ashreinu, that we have a community that knows how to celebrate simchas and we get together. So our vulnerability was based on the fact that we have a lifestyle. It's not even a lifestyle. We have commitments to each other. We have a kehillah that doesn't exist in other places. And so, we actually live certain ways, and it's hard to stop a life in its tracks, especially when we do believe that when it's not shchia chazeka, when it's not absolutely overwhelming, when it's not common, we do believe that Torah and mitzvahs are a magain. They actually do create a reality in the world. It is true that the Torah makes a difference and creates protection. And there are times when in a magefa it doesn't. But when you don't know a magefa is coming, you actually believe being Mesameach Chasam V'Kala, or coming together, the Simchas Purim, or otherwise coming together in Minyanim, and that kind. You actually know and believe that this is something special. So we can't be blamed for having a totally different set of values than the rest of the world that made us very vulnerable to this. And I'll just add, and it's okay to find that some people didn't play by the rules, and unfortunately there are consequences to that. It doesn't make us evil, it makes us human. Human beings don't always listen, and sometimes there are consequences, but it doesn't mean that we don't have real values.
Rebbetzin, would you add anything, or?
I would add a little bit. I think that was really very well said and true. And what I always tell my students all the time is that one of the things we want to learn how to do in life is see what other people are doing, recognize it may not be what we would do or what we think is right, reaffirm to ourselves, here's what I think is the appropriate way to behave, and make sure, look at myself. Am I doing everything that I know is the right thing to do? Now I'm going to go judging them? That's not my place. My place is to strengthen where I'm standing. We don't know the whole picture, like my husband was saying. This is a piece of Klal Yisrael. It's very hard to just uproot that right away. They think what they're doing is the right thing. They think that's having emunah. Maybe they're making a mistake. But we have to do what we think is right and not judge other people. You strengthen yourself in your avodah when you look at something like that.
Okay. How would you deal with children, teenagers again, I see you both teach teenagers, who don't really respect social distancing and are going out and potentially putting their parents at risk, or the other family members, and you have that maverick teenager who just sticks his foot kicks the floor and says, listen, I can't be without my friends, and creates a lot of stress at a time like this. How would you be mechanech them?
First of all, we want to put it on a very basic human level. There are considerations that we have for other people. We actually think about other people. And this is a bein adam lechavero issue. It's not a question of somebody made a rule and therefore we have to be separate. The rules themselves reflect a value that we all believe in. It's called bein adam lechavero. We actually are considerate of other people. And consideration sometimes means that we give up our own convenience because there's there's a well-being. There's the well-being of somebody else that we're concerned about. So I think very often, especially young people, rules are designed to be avoided. No one's going to tell me what to do, and I'll comply with the rules when I have to. If there'll be bad consequences if I don't, and I'll get away without complying with the rules if I can get away with it. What we have to understand, and what I think it's important to share with young people, is that rules reflect a value. And the value is something you yourself identify with. You're a caring person. You're somebody who would sacrifice your own convenience for other people. And that's all we're talking about here. We're not talking about you having a miserable life. We're talking about consideration and actually just being aware of what makes a difference to somebody else.
Okay. You're saying you have to speak to the stone and not hit the stone.
Very good. Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
Okay. What would you in closing say, these are really special times, and here is something that we should take out of it as Jews, as humans, as mechanchim, as parents. If you had to say, leave me with a thought, leave us with a thought. I'm sure you both thought what it means, what's the message here. So as mutual parents, mechanchim, what's the message we should be taking out of this very trying time?
Well, you want to go first?
I don't have anything profound to say other than that we and our children have to know that we have to be humble, that we're creatures. There's a Ribbonu Shel Olam, and my job is to trust every day that He is doing everything that is right for us. And how do I follow what He wants me to do? And how do I stay b'simcha because He's with me? There's nothing else in life, really, other than knowing that I'm the creature, not the God. We all fall into thinking it should be my way. Really, in a sense, we think that we're God. Our children need to know, I can't make camp work for you. I can't make school work for you. There's Ribbonu Shel Olam who loves us. We're here to serve Him. Every day, no matter what's happening, we do the best that we can. There's nothing else to say. There's no other answer. I could say more Tehillim, daven with more kavanah, be nicer to your brother. That doesn't mean anything to them. We have to create inside of them a humility that they should understand from the time they're 2 years old. We are in this world to serve the Ribbonu Shel Olam. That's it, the end.
Anut atareyecha v'anut. Yeah. Okay. Powerful message.
I want to add something to that because my wife took the word out of my mouth, humility. But there's a form of humility that is not just about the opposite of arrogance. There's a form of humility in which I don't have to figure it all out myself. I heard talk, especially early on, before people started dying, that this coronavirus is so unbelievable that this is Mashiach Zeiten. Mashiach's coming. Besides what the Rambam himself says about not being Machashev Kitzim, but besides that, we don't have to have an explanation for everything. We know that the Rebbetzin Shalom is acting, that's for sure. The Rebbetzin Shalom put on his aderes, his spectacular clothing over here. There's no question about it. And I see him. What's he doing? He'll let me know. When I have to type something up, I am actually robbing the event of meaning because I've now defined it so that I can manipulate it and talk about it as if I get it. No, I'm actually a creature watching the being who created the world, who is beyond fathoming, and I'm humbly going to watch him. So I think it's very important for the adult world, before we talk to our kids. The adult.
You're saying the Rebbetzin Shalom was created here a moment of silence.
Very good. Thank you.
Acceptance.
And don't speak during a moment of silence. It's the biggest thing you could do.
Yeah, perfect. By the way, you should interview yourself. I love what you have to say.
Well, it's been a great honor to have the Rav and the Rebbetzin of Atlanta, and thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for being with us.
כאיש אחד